Good afternoon. Thank you so much. Our apologies that votes made us wait a little bit, but I wanted to go ahead and open up this press conference to really introduce what conservatives are coalescing around to be a conservative solution for healthcare concerns for Americans. And we are joined today by our Senate colleague, Dr. Rand Paul, who is obviously worked with us very closely. Thank you, Senator. And Governor Sanford, who together will put forth a definitive plan that will address the concerns that many of my constituents and constituents across the country have raised with regards to the repeal and replacement of the Affordable Care Act. The House Freedom Caucus has taken an official position to support the full repeal of the Affordable Care Act, and today takes the official position to actually support Governor Sanford's bill as a companion bill to the one that Dr. Paul has introduced in the Senate. We're excited about the fact that it will finally be able to address many of the concerns that we're hearing, whether it's at town halls or personal calls or from our constituents about pre-existing conditions, about how to empower the consumer in terms of their health care choice, and ultimately drive down the price of health care. And so with that, I'd like to turn the podium over to Dr. Rand Paul for some comments. Thanks.
As Mark said, this is a big day for conservative Republicans. We won in 2010 based on our position that we should repeal Obamacare and our concern for big government and debt. But Obamacare and repealing Obamacare was a big reason why we won the House in 2010. It's a big reason why we won in 2014. And it still was yet a big reason why we won the White House in 2016. We owe this to the conservatives around the country who elected us to completely repeal Obamacare. But I think if you're going to completely repeal something, you should replace it. And I've been a physician for over 20 years, and there are problems in healthcare, some that even predate Obamacare, and we are concerned with how to provide the most amount of insurance at the least amount of cost. And that's what our replacement bill does. Congressman Sanford will go into some of the details, but I'll give you three sort of principles that I talk about with it. It's going to legalize the sale of inexpensive insurance. It's going to expand health savings accounts so people can save to buy their insurance. They can use it for their deductible or their premium, for vitamins, weight loss, you name it, exercise. And it also allows individuals to join an association so that they're not left out in the cold by themselves to buy insurance in a small insurance pool. Everybody in the country, the 11 million people in the individual market, will be allowed to join an association, and these associations will give them leverage to get lower price and better insurance. And I think this is a big day for conservatives. Congressman Sanford.
Sure. Just a couple of thoughts. The first of which is I want to give credit to Senator Paul for his creation of this bill. It needs to be remembered that this is the companion bill to what he has already created in the Senate side. And so I've long admired his stance toward liberty and to individual freedom and to maximizing both. But I particularly like the way in which he's taken his real-world life experience as a physician and applied them to bring liberty to ultimately patients and citizens alike across this country in terms of what comes next in health care. Two, I would single out Mark and Jim and Dave and others, this band of brothers that are representing the Freedom Caucus. This is not my bill. This is in essence a work of the Freedom Caucus. The Freedom Caucus is built around this notion of maximizing, again, individual liberty and freedom. And I think that that's what this bill does. I mean, you think about this notion of advancing the hallmark of the American experiment, it's individual freedom. And one of the places that we don't have that right now is on health care. And so, you know, my dad always used to say that if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And you look at the energy that's been in some of these town hall meetings, it's tied to, when you think about this debate, there's nothing more personal, more vital, in some cases more life and death, than one's health care. It is a big deal. It affects those of us that we love. And the Affordable Care Act was well-intended. It was built around trying to correct some of the things that Senator Paul was just alluding to that weren't working right within the system, but it created some of its own problems. You know, it had government deciding what was essential, whether you and your family members thought the same. It had government, in essence, setting up non-insurance insurance, which worked against all the math of what would make a system sustainable. It never decoupled employment from insurance, which I think is a fatal flaw within the current system at large. And as a consequence, in a state like South Carolina, you see premiums that have gone up by 29%, and you see us pull down to yet but one provider. So I think that what's really represented here in this bill that a lot of folks have worked on, whether from the caucus standpoint or from the Senator Paul's standpoint, is an inflection point. This is not about replacing the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. This is about where do we go next in terms of health care so that people are in control. I think that fundamentally in life, there's nothing more frustrating than being in charge but not in control. But if you really think about the paradigm that's represented in healthcare, fundamentally, all of us as healthcare consumers are in charge but ultimately not in control. And what again, Senator Paul has seized on is this notion of how do we put the consumer back in charge and in control of what comes next. I think that this bill, like no other, empowers the consumer and creates a marketplace. If I was boil down the whole bill, that's fundamentally what each one of its line items are about. How do you empower the consumer so that a patient in consultation with their doctor is able to make the decisions that they believe to be best for them and their family? And how do you create a vibrant marketplace so that you have real choices out there? I think that there are a couple of things that, again, stand out. One is severing employment from health insurance. Is your home insurance tied to your job? Is your car insurance tied to your job? It's not. And yet, with employment, we have it tied to health care simply because an anomaly of history. And that was the wage and price controls of World War II. And it was in 1948 that the two got coupled as a way of getting around the wage and price controls that existed in World War II. And it's been forever linked, and it's created a fatal flaw within our health system. So I think that what Senator Paul has gotten at, what the caucus is about, is saying, wait a minute, this is a fundamental flaw in the way that we deliver health care these days. Might not we change that? It's about that. It's about affordable plans, as the senator just mentioned. It's about robust HSAs. It's about, I think, a correct way of dealing with pre-existing conditions, which this bill does. It's about pooling and a whole lot more. But before I talk too much, I will hand off to Emeritus? Do I say Emeritus?
No, don't say that.
No?
Makes you sound way too old. Look, the American people have had it. They are frustrated, and they're frustrated because you got to remember the framework. They were told 9 different lies when this thing passed. Like your plan, keep your plan. Like your doctor, keep your doctor. Premiums will decline. They'll decline on average $2,500. Deductibles will go down. Website is secure. Website will work. Emergency room visits will decline. They've actually increased. And they were also told these 23 co-ops we're going to create are going to be the cat's meow. 18 of them have already went bankrupt. So everything they were told about this law turned out to be false. And it's in that context where they're looking for a cure and they're tired of waiting. And frankly, so are we. And that's why this week, under Chairman Meadows' leadership, you saw our group take 2 positions. 1, repeal it now, and use the bill that's already passed, the House and the Senate. Take the 2015 legislation and pass it, and then put in a replacement bill the kind of things that are going to empower individuals, empower consumers, empower doctors, and not empower Washington like Obamacare does. Pretty simple plan, long overdue, and frankly, as I said, we were tired of waiting, and that's why we took the position we did and said, let's go. Let's go now. Let's do something we know can pass on repeal. At the same time, let's put forward this replacement legislation, which does just what the governor said and what Dr. Paul said, empowers people and actually creates an environment for freedom and market choice, which we think in the end will lower health care costs and help the families that we're trying to help and that we told we were going to help and we told we were going to do this.
Thank you. I want to speak specifically to one portion of the plan, because I believe it's illustrative of the process that's occurred here. I want to commend Dr. Paul, Governor Sanford, Congressman Jordan, and Meadows for doing this, and I want to read you a couple of quotes. First, at its core, health reform is about ensuring that American families and businesses have more choices, benefit from more competition, and have greater control over their health care. And the second quote is, It's time for Washington to decide whether we stand with patients and profiteering, whether we believe in market competition or collusion between politicians and insurance monopolies. The first quote was from Robert Gibbs, President Obama's press secretary in 2010, about McCarran-Ferguson repeal. The second quote from patron of H.R. 4626, Tom Perriello, on McCarran-Ferguson repeal. What you'll note when you review Dr. Paul's bill and Governor Sanford's bill, which are companion bills, is that we've included McCarran-Ferguson repeal because we acknowledge that no side has a monopoly on good ideas and that this isn't about advancing a partisan agenda. It's about fixing the problems of health care that are most seriously underscored by the 9 broken promises that Congressman Jordan outlined. We are not, it's amazing what you can accomplish, to paraphrase a better man, when you're not concerned with who gets the credit. What we've done here is collectively worked to find the best ideas to address the problems in American healthcare and roll those into one so that when we repeal, we can have a replacement that will work for American families.
Listen, there's not much more that can be said, I'm sure, but I just want to thank Senator Paul and Congressman Sanford for their role in this. Look, we have all experienced an absolute disaster with Obamacare. The rates have gone up, deductibles have skyrocketed, health services have gone down. It has been an absolute open season on the American wallet and pocketbook and health services, and I'm just deeply honored that we are making steps toward eliminating this destructive and coercive intrusion of government into our lives and our health care. And I'm grateful that we are on the brink of finding common sense, patient-centered, market-centered solutions to what has been an absolute disaster. And I'm deeply appreciative of these gentlemen and their role in making this happen and being a part of finding true solutions to get our health care industry right back where it needs to be.
Yep, it's a privilege to be up here today with thought leaders on the freedom side of the aisle. And I just want to reiterate today on the front of Politico, the death spirals are being announced day by day from insurance providers. What does this mean at the 30,000-foot level? The economy's growing at about 1.6% the past year. I think it's about also 1.6% over the past 8 years. And people wonder why there's a little bit of political anxiety and upset across the nation. I taught economic history for 20 years, and over time, when the middle class and the average person's wages are flat for 30 years in a row, which they have been, people tend to get a little restless. And you see anxiety, political anxiety out there, and our job is to fix that. And the best way you can do that is by getting a repeal of Obamacare and then a replacement, which will be announced in the bills here, and then getting tax reform through this year. Tax reform also promises to increase GDP by about 4%, according to Larry Lindsay from Harvard, and wage growth of 8%. So when you put together an Obamacare repeal and replace and get to free market principles and get our cost curve finally bending down, right? What does it mean to bend a cost curve down? Right now, costs are going up 20% on average. Bending the cost curve down doesn't mean increasing healthcare costs at 10%. It means shrinking at negative 1%, right? That was the promise of Obamacare. That was the major promise. Small businesses cannot hire today because of the cost of that input into that hiring decision. Small business growth is terrible. The group standing behind me wants to change that, and so that's why we're very serious about pursuing this agenda in a timely fashion. So we put in place these measures in March in the first reconciliation, tax reform in the second reconciliation in a few more months after that. By then, the economy starts taking off, and the American people will be happy again, and we'll be all happy with them. Thank you all very much.
So let me go ahead and close, assuming that there may be one or two questions as we look at this. The number one question that I've been asked since we talked about repealing the Affordable Care Act is, what are you going to replace it with? Today, conservatives have come together to say that this is the replacement plan that we want to not only promote, but debate and hopefully fine-tune to make sure that we meet the needs for Americans from coast to coast, from north to south, and east to west. So with that, we'll go ahead and the first hand I saw was right here, and then I'll try to reach out. Go ahead.
Thank you. It sounds like the centerpiece of your proposal is a tax credit for a tax deduction for individuals, the way employers get. Could you talk to me a little bit about the contrast between that and the refundable tax credit that leadership has talked about? Do you view the latter as a government subsidy? And why do you prefer yours to theirs?
What we have at the centerpiece of ours is expansion of health savings accounts, and there is a tax credit. It's a tax credit against taxes that you pay, though. It's not a refundable credit in the sense that if you didn't pay taxes, you don't get extra money from the government. The problem I have, and everybody can speak for themselves, with a new refundable tax credit is it's essentially a subsidy by another name. So Obamacare had subsidies. If we call them refundable tax credits, have we really done anything other than change the name? So I think that's a problem. Now, on the individual tax side, it's a little more complicated. The individual, it's sometimes tough for them to deduct their health care. So we've equalized the individual with employers, and we did so through it's so complicated I probably can't explain it. We might have to give it to you in writing, but what I would say is it's through a non-refundable or a refundable deduction, if that's possible. So it's a little bit complicated, but the bottom line is our plan doesn't include giving people money back they didn't pay. It includes giving people money back they paid, so they pay less in taxes, which we think is also, most of us are for less taxes and smaller government. We think that's a good thing.
And do you have a mechanism to fund that? Because that's going to cost some revenue.
Yeah, I think government should be smaller, and everyone up here has voted for less spending. I wouldn't balance it with other taxes. So we often say we're going to balance revenue things with, oh, you're having a tax cut, so we need a tax increase and have a balanced revenue-neutral tax plan. No, why don't we have a tax cut and a spending cut and balance them with spending cuts? And I'm guessing that's what the other conservatives would say here, too.
All right, we'll go here and
How are HSAs going to help people in that 100 to 400% federal poverty who probably don't have disposable income to put in there? And then my second question is, for the pre-existing conditions, if insurers are required to accept those folks, are they still allowed to charge them more?
I think that's determined ultimately by a marketplace in terms of pre-existing condition. Right now, you've got two problems with pre-existing condition. The old system was you just were out of luck, period, you're off. I think that you have to set up some kind of consequence if you're going to create an insurance market. So